What's going on, everybody? So, we normally, when we think of emergencies and prepping, we think of hurricanes, floods, even financial collapse or EMPs. What we don't always think of is a big-ass rock falling from the sky. That's normally not in the wheelhouse. And most of us would acknowledge that we'd be kind of screwed if something like that happened, because how do you stop the big rock, right? Anyway, we've seen the movies, sir. But anyway, that's besides the point. So our friends at NASA recently had announced, along with astrophysicists and other such folks who've been watching the stars, that there was an asteroid, I believe it was called 2024 YF, and it was found to be that it had a low possibility of collision with the Earth. As of the last report, it had been listed at a 3% chance, which is very high, believe it or not, because they've been tracking this stuff. This is one of the things all the countries agree on, like getting hit by big rocks is a bad thing. So everyone's kind of looking up at the stars when they're not shooting each other. And they saw this asteroid and they're like, that thing's going to kind of pass close. Normally, most asteroids are in the less than 0.5% chance. Most are very low, like 0.01% or something like that. Well, this one was 3%. Now, if you think in terms of magnitude, it's triple the danger. So it is significant, scientifically speaking. But then it went from 3% down to 2%. Now they're saying it's probably going to be under 1%. And so there's a scale, which I just blanked out about, and it goes from 0 to 10, kind of like a hurricane scale or a tornado scale. That it has different levels of danger or magnitude of danger. And this one was up to a 3 at one point, but then it was reduced down to what they call a 0, which is a less than 1% chance. And as they're looking at it more, they're getting a better understanding of the movement and the physics behind this particular rock. And of course, NASA and the Russians and everyone else are having conversations among the scientists and some in the military saying, well, if we have to fight with it, what do we do? If you recall, the Space Force and the U.S. Air Force had done a redirecting of an asteroid years ago. A couple of years ago, they actually sent a satellite or a probe with an explosive device purely to reorient an asteroid to send it out of the atmosphere. It's a small asteroid, and they did boom, and it went the other way. And it didn't need to move much, right? In terms of space, we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles over, years and years of movement. However, I just read a report about this asteroid because being an aerospace engineer, I'm like, that's pretty cool. It was a big asteroid. And when they first saw it, the initial calculations from the astronomers that saw this entity was that it was an imminent risk, but it was a individual scientist, and he's like, somebody got to check my math. At least these guys understood, hey, we got to double check each other because this could be serious if I'm right. But after they ran the initial numbers with the initial data, they were giving it a 33% chance of hitting the Earth. Now, this building wouldn't have been a cataclysm. Well, it would have been a cataclysm, but it would not have been a extinction level event, but it would have been a really horrendous event no matter where it landed. And it was predicted to land in like the Pacific somewhere, or in like the bowels of the Mojave Desert or something like that. It was some like obscure place. But this damn thing would have hit roughly with the force of a 7 to 10 megaton bomb. By comparison, the Hiroshima bombs were measured in kilotons, not megatons. That's a whole order of magnitude greater. Those of you who remember high school math know what I'm talking about. So interesting that at one point there was the not only possible but probable chance that this asteroid or a component following it, because it's like the asteroid and it has these little guys following it, I guess parts that have come off and they're all in the same trajectory, to come into our atmosphere, and something of that magnitude would erase New York City from the map. Let's just put it like that. They estimate it would have made a crater about 300 feet deep and about 1,000 feet wide, and that's just the hole. That's not including debris, the shock wave, the heat. You know, just two pieces of rock and metal hitting each other at that speed and that magnitude would have incinerated a city like New York. It would be gone, or Moscow easily. And it's funny because they didn't say a word about it. They just said, oh, look what we found. There's an asteroid. We're looking into it. Some people who saw this report were actually commenting online, well, that's bullshit. You should have told the public. I'm always about scientific transparency. As an engineer, as a guy who has to use science on a day-to-day basis, I'm always about being the person who lays things on the table. However, you always want to make sure before you put things on the table, you have your shit correctly, your ducks are in a row, your math is confirmed. And if you don't have the right data, there's no shame or sin in waiting a minute and saying, this is what it looks like, but give us a minute, let us but I think that whole process should be transparent. But in this case, I'm kind of glad they didn't say it up front, like, oh, 33% chance of hitting the Earth, because honestly, the freak out that could conceivably have happened in some of the cities that may be in that belt, and it would have been close to the equator of being hit, would have been insane. It was predicted to hit in 2032, which technically speaking is a long ways away. But then one equation had it hitting in 2028, which would be a couple of years away. Even 2032 is not that far away when you think about it. So, yeah, crisis averted. But when you read these articles about, oh, there was an asteroid or there was this and it's X% chance, and you find it interesting, do a little digging, because more than likely the reason it's in the media and being discussed is because at some juncture, somebody thought it was way worse than it was. And it reminds me a bit of the early COVID, where people on Twitter at the time and TikTok were like, did you see what the Chinese just did in Beijing? They made a 10,000 person hospital in 3 weeks. And they're locking people in their apartments, and everyone in the West was like, la, 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 it was fine. No, we're good. It's just the flu. Then it hit, and then they were like, oh, take this stuff. And it turns out some of the stuff that we took for the bad thing was bad also. So again, different discussion. But the point is, having that transparency, do some digging. If it's up in social media, if people are talking about it, if it's on the media in general, it's because somebody got a little bit concerned about it. So do your digging, do your own due diligence. Again, I understand why these scientists kind of kept that under wraps, because that would have caused a freak out and somebody would have run with it. And you know, some of the YouTube channels is like, you're going to die today, click this link. No. There's no link you can click for a damn asteroid. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Again, double check your numbers, double check your math. Feel free to shoot me an email if you see something science-wise that's like, hey, they think we're going to have an apocalypse. What do you think? Because I'll ask people I know. I know scientists who are in universities and research centers. I'll be like, hey, so are we all going to die next week? We're going to die Wednesday, as Hudson Valley likes to say. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you guys be good, be safe, be careful out there. Always cross-check your information, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.